that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. So lovely earth can stay lovely still.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Energy Week with George Harvey, me, and the famous Tom Fennell.
In the flesh.
In the flesh. Every day I get up early. Today I got up at 3:45.
You bragging or complaining?
Neither. I'm just telling the truth. I get up early and I go to the internet and I look for news on energy and climate change, and anything I find interesting is likely to wind up at my blog, geoharvey.com, and I post a group of 10 to 15 items every day. I've been doing this for years, literally. Yeah. And every week, Tom and I come and record a show giving the most interesting energy news of the week.
The best of the blog.
The best of the blog, about 20 items, 21 items. And today we are recording this on the 6th of April, and the show runs news from the 30th of March to the 5th of April. And if you'd like to do research on any of the news items that we talk about, you can go to the blog, geoharvey.com, and on the blog there's a calendar you can click on on the date. So we'll try to keep you updated on what date we're talking about. We're going to start with the 30th of March.
Well, some of these things are great stories. They're just too in-depth for us to talk about.
Yeah.
We don't have time. We'd be on here a week.
Yeah.
So I'll try and mention some of the more interesting ones.
Yep.
And click on the link on George's blog and you'll get right to it. And some
Yep.
of them are well worth following up.
Some of them are really interesting. The first one, should we just start?
Huh?
Let's do it. Let's start. Let's start.
Okay, let's
We're
get
going to
this picture
start
up here.
with an item from BBC News, and this is a kind of fun. This is a picture of the island of, in English, Egg.
And in Scottish, Eka.
Eka, you got it. I was going to say that, but Tom was ahead of me. So it's spelled E-I-G-G, and E-I-G-G is a two-syllable word in Scottish. Those Scots, amazing people. Okay.
I'm looking at that picture, and I hope you are too, because this really looks like a real pretty island.
Yes, it does.
And that beach behind the church there is called the Singing Beach.
Singing Beach.
Because when you walk on it, the sand vibrates.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. What do we have a title on this?
I think we do. I gotta find it.
Oh, you got to find it.
The small Scottish isle is leading the world in electricity. And this is an interesting article.
It is. It's fun. In 2008, the island of Eka became the world's first community to launch an off-grid electric system powered by wind, water, and solar. Today, Eka continues to set an example of how societies could meet their energy needs without access to a national grid. Getting electricity without a grid is a challenge that affects nearly a fifth of the world's population, and it could affect more than a fifth of the world population if things get bad with a solar coronal discharge or something like that.
We have talked about this in the past.
We have, yeah, but it's just fun.
And I remember there's a, how would you say it, a stone structure. I mean, it's not a structure, a natural formation in there that looks like a huge castle.
Yes, yeah.
And unfortunately, I don't have a picture of it to show
We don't
you.
have it here. I think we've had that on before.
We have had it on there.
This island has it's in the Inner Hebrides, which means that it would not be all that difficult an island to get grid power to. It would be expensive, like going to Block Island or something like that off Rhode Island. But nevertheless, it's just not worthwhile to put in grid power for the population, which is, what, about 80, as I recall? I think that's what
I
it is.
don't remember now, but
But, you know, these people were, as a result of that, depending on a power grid that was up when the diesel generator was running, and it cost huge amounts of money to get power to the, from their local grid. Now they've got power on the grid, and they're happy as clams.
and there's
as
a
they say.
backstory here. They did it themselves.
Yeah,
They learned how to do it and did it themselves and set up their own grid.
amazing. Okay, should we go on?
Yeah, I think we should.
Getting near home here from the Valley News.
Yeah, let's see the next one here. Come on, you. There we go. The largest Vermont solar array ever.
Vermont state regulators have approved a massive Windsor County, that's Windsor, not Wyndham, solar array that will be 4 times the size of any such project built in Vermont so far. The Coolidge Solar Project, to be built in Ludlow and Cavendish, will have a capacity of 20 megawatts. The largest existing array in Vermont is just under 5 megawatts, according to state officials.
By the way, this same company called Ranger Solar is building in Hinsdale right now.
Yeah,
And they're going to be putting up 65 megawatts over there.
a picture up still.
Yeah,
I
you
think
wanna-
you should have us
So
up.
you want to get us up there
We
instead
deserve
of
we deserve our time. Yeah, I don't know much about Ranger Solar. I tried to contact them to write an article for Green Energy Times on the Hinsdale project, and I wasn't able to get
They're
through.
probably pretty big. Well, they are pretty big in New England.
They're
They're building stuff all over New England.
yeah, but they seem to be hard to get a hold of to talk to. I've telephoned and sent email, and they don't get back to me. I'll try again.
By the way, the electricity generated by this particular project is going to be sold in Connecticut.
Yeah, if you don't mind, Tom, I'd like to say something about utility scale solar arrays.
Go for it.
Okay, when I was a kid, you know, I lived in Winchester, New Hampshire. I lived in Illinois, in towns there, and in both places. In Winchester, I lived on a farm. It was not a productive farm, but it was a farm. And in Illinois, I was within walking distance of farmland. The biggest town city I lived in there was Aurora, but I was still within walking distance of farmland. And I know about New Hampshire, Vermont farms and Illinois farms, and I can tell you that if for purely ecological reasons, having nothing to do with anything resulting from generating electricity, just in terms of the local ecology, the biodiversity and so forth, given a choice between a 20-acre farm field covered with solar panels, which people around here really object to, or a 20-acre farm field covered with corn grown conventionally, I would go for the solar every time. Because corn is extremely destructive to the soil.
It's all GMO.
It's almost all GMO, and which means that the typical field is covered with herbicides, insecticides, and fungicides. In other words, poison.
Yeah.
The poison is going down on the earth, and in addition to that, a cornfield. If you're accustomed to driving through western Kane County, Illinois, and just seeing cornfield after cornfield after cornfield, you realize
boring, doesn't it?
not only is it boring, but from an ecological point of view, it is a desert. It's a monocropped desert.
Yeah,
The
good point.
only animals and plants that live there live on the edges of the cornfields. And so
And this corn that they're growing is animal feed.
that's right.
Yeah, it's not
and
for
the
people.
and the rows at the edges of the fields are when I was a little kid, the farmers were just kind of beginning, or they'd gone a little past beginning, but they were the traditional farmer cut all that stuff down because he didn't want animals and plants there, which made it even worse. And the farmers who were more progressive were saying, yeah, it might be a good idea to have birds and mice even, believe it or not. So I would go for utility scale solar despite all the complaints about it, because I think it's better than corn conventionally. And no, I don't think it's better than organic food, but look at the pictures of solar arrays from the UK. They all have, not all, but many of them have agriculture going on the same field at the same
They're
time.
not mutually prohibitive.
Right.
You can work around it.
You can work around it. The easy way to do it is to graze sheep under them. There are grasses that grow that were bred specifically to graze sheep that are not GMOs that will grow as well in 50% shade as they will in the open.
You know, the sheep have a place to hide during the heat of day.
You know, I lived in Devon.
Yeah.
And in Devon, you get out on the moors and you find that the farmers burn the fields every couple of years to discourage the growth of heather. And so there's charcoal sticks sticking up all over the fields. And then if you walk 100 yards, you're going to come to an erosion ditch. They encourage erosion because it gives the sheep a place to hide from the wind.
Okay.
And I mean, okay, would you rather have a solar field or would you rather have that? I'm sorry. With a solar field, you could have the sheep and the solar field. You don't have to encourage erosion.
Well, you know, if you were to compare a field full of solar panels and an electrical generating station, from a standpoint of beauty, I think I'd go with the solar panel.
I think I would too. Let's get out of this before somebody starts throwing tomatoes at us.
Well,
Okay, our next item is
image coming up here.
our next item is from Valley News. The image isn't from Valley News. Oh, that was from Valley News. The next image is from the Chicago Tribune. There's an opportunity to deal with something that doesn't include.
Yeah, let's get this image up here.
It doesn't include solar, utility scale solar. This guy looks like he's ready for a few beers.
He's happy, isn't he? Yeah. Energy companies may pay U.S. more to drill or mine on public land.
Okay, energy companies could pay the U.S. government higher royalties for oil, gas, and other resources extracted from public land under a review. Interior Secretary Ryan Zinke, I don't know if is his name Zink?
I'll go for Zinke.
Zinke authorized. The 2-year review is designed to determine whether Americans are getting fair return from those natural resources, he said in an interview. So what do you think of this, Tom?
Well, I'm reading here, and it says that the analysis is going to touch on the price developers pay for generating renewable power as well as unearthing fossil fuels.
You know,
I don't know how they're going to do that.
Donald Trump said he was going to resurrect coal, and now he says that, you know, his Interior Secretary says, but we have to charge more money for rental of the land.
Coal is dead. We've talked about it now as a zombie.
It's not dead yet, Tom, because it's a political football, and it's going to stay alive. It's the undead. Okay. We are up to Friday, March 31st, and we have a picture of a gigafactory here. You can tell it's a gigafactory because it says Tesla right on it.
There we go.
And I don't have a credit on this photograph because the article that it came from didn't have a credit. Nevertheless, that blue roof that they've got, which almost looks like a lake.
I got a credit called the Legman News.
Oh, do you? Okay. Oh, that's the credit for the article.
Okay,
there was no credit,
picture.
no credit for the picture. Yes, this is from the Legman News.
Now I'm looking at this picture, and that building's big. Of course, what we're seeing there, I believe, is an artist's.
I don't think so. Those little dots.
Well, that was all my point is.
Those are cars.
In front of that, it looks like a parking lot.
It's a
There's
huge.
little white dots in there, and they're cars, aren't
And they're
they?
cars, yeah.
Yeah, wow. This is a very large building.
This is a
folks.
big building. This is, I think, it's the largest building on Earth in terms of the number of square feet it covers.
Yeah.
What do you got for a title?
Well, let's move along here. The title. The title is Gigafactory.
There you go.
I don't have it.
Just
I must have another. Yeah, here it is. Tesla to build the world's largest solar rooftop at Gigafactory.
Okay. Just after its merger with Solar City to build a do you think Solar City's going to do this? I think they will.
Well, doesn't Tesla own Solar City?
Solar City
The
to
right
build
hand helps the left
yeah,
hand.
the right hand and the left hand. To build a factory that will be used for production of Tesla battery cells. Now, as part of the infrastructure plan, Tesla is in plans to build the world's largest solar panel rooftop on the roof of Nevada's Gigafactory. Well, maybe those solar panels haven't gone in yet. and that's an artist rendering. The construction of this green energy facility will be completed by 2018.
And Tesla claims the Gigafactory will be totally electric. No fossil fuels will be utilized directly.
Well, that's what, they've had that all along as a goal. I wonder how many employees will be driving Tesla's cars. Should we move on?
I think we ought to.
PV Magazine came up with our next item.
Enel breaks ground on a 754 megawatt solar park in Mexico. That's a big solar
That's a
park.
big solar park.
It's 150 times bigger than the one that's going up in Brattleboro.
Yeah, and that's big by Vermont standards.
Used to be.
Used to be big. Italian power provider Enel announced that construction work has begun on the largest PV plant on the American continent. This is in Mexico.
Yep.
Mexico is ahead of the United States, of course. Why would you think any other was? It is the 754 megawatt Villanueva project, which is in the Mexican state of Coahuila. I don't know how to pronounce
You don't
Spanish.
pronounce the H.
Coahuila?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know how to pronounce Spanish well. The only thing I can do in Spanish is swear in a Puerto Rican accent. The company is investing 650 million euros on the project. I'm going to say that that's about 700 and some odd million dollars, and is scheduled for completion in the second half of 2018. So there you go.
Well, let's move along.
You want to get out of this one? Okay.
Got another picture coming.
We do indeed. That's an interesting picture, I think.
This is interesting. This is interesting.
This is from the Gazette, Eastern Iowa Breaking News and Headlines.
Yeah, let's move up here. Wind power saves Iowans on energy costs. So let's leave that picture up there for a while.
Yeah, a little
Talk
bit.
about it.
A new Iowa Policy Project report claims that Iowa's electricity prices, which are appreciably lower than the national average, can be attributed to the state's growing wind industry. The project's lead environmental scientist said the data shows the cost gap between Iowa and other states is increasing. So they're lower than most other states, but the difference is getting bigger rather than smaller.
Iowa, not only big in utilization of wind, it's big in building wind factories.
Right, and that's what
And what you see in here is a training program
Right,
at a community college. This picture's taken in a lab,
yeah.
but it's a real unit.
Yep.
I think it's a real unit that's been set up in a lab.
It sure looks like it. And if
And
you
if
look,
you notice, these guys are tethered.
well, this thing looks like it's sitting there at a pretty hefty tilt. But the thing that's interesting here is that you can see just by looking at this particular picture why wind turbines are noisy when they're noisy. And that is they've got a big set of gears in there that move when the wind turbine is changing direction.
Yeah,
So
you can hear that.
you can hear it. It's the loudest thing that I've heard a wind turbine make.
It's probably louder than the whoosh, whoosh, whoosh of the turbines.
Well,
Because it clunks.
yes, it does. It sounds almost like a cat purring, except well, never mind. Okay, we're up to Saturday, April 1st.
Okay.
Item from Clean Technica.
I guess I'll put you up here.
You'll put me up. Nobody wants
India
to look.
bans the Euro 3 and older vehicle sales effective April 1st. And by the way, Euro 3 is a program of cleaning up cars.
Yes,
It is, I think they're up to Euro 7 now.
yeah.
But they're moving from Euro 3, which goes back to January in 2000, to
Yes.
Euro 4, which goes to January 2005. So
So,
this isn't terribly intrusive.
so Euro 4 came in 2005,
Yeah.
which means that they're banning sales of vehicles that are up to the standard that was okay in Europe prior to 2005, 12 years ago.
Exactly.
Okay.
2000.
The top court in India has gone ahead and banned the sale of vehicles running on Euro 3 standards and older in a bid to reduce the country's growing air pollution problems. The ban becomes effective as of April 1st, so it's already effective. According to one expert, there are about 120 billion rupees, which is about about $1.85 billion
Yep.
worth of unsold Euro 3 stock in the country. I'm glad they put this in billions of rupees instead of crore lakhs.
Yeah, hard to translate that.
It's hard to translate crore lakhs because a lakh is 100,000 and a crore is 10 million.
Something like that.
And if you have a crore, if you have a lakh of crores, you you got an indecipherable number. Okay, should we go on?
Yeah, I think we shall. Let's see.
Okay.
We got an image going on
We
here
do.
too.
There we go.
Yeah,
This image has nothing whatever to do with energy.
No,
but
it's a nice picture.
It does have to do with the location of the story. This is from Hawaii Public Radio.
Molokai, first off the grid? Question mark.
At the recent Maui Energy Conference, the officials from Hawaiian Electric Company detailed a plan that would take Molokai, the first island in Hawaii, make Molokai the first. That's how they pronounce it.
Yeah.
I love the Hawaiian language. You know, the alphabet in Hawaiian is AEHIKLMNOPUW. Oh, I'm sorry, and it has the glottal stop that is in Molokai, the first island in Hawaii to completely kick the fossil fuel habit. The 2,000 power customers on Molokai. I'm sorry, I can't get away from that. Are currently drawing on a 12 megawatt fuel powered Palau power plant as well as 2.36 megawatts of solar power.
This is an interesting plan because they're going to have a lot of battery storage.
They're going to have a lot of battery storage. They're going to be solar, a lot of solar, and then they'll have other sources of renewable power.
Some wind, a little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything.
But no more oil.
No more oil. Well, the oil is blasted expensive.
Well, yeah, they got to tow it way out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean there.
That's right. Okay, so we're up to an article in Forbes.
Okay. Well, Trump, well, get this frog out of my throat here.
Please. Let's make English a language that's expressive. It's not a frog, it's a frog.
I like that one. Well, Trump tries to throw the U.S. climate change agenda into reverse, leading businesses speed forward.
You know, Donald Trump, if he doesn't declare a war by himself, which is something I'm a little bit worried he will do, will wind up being probably the most irrelevant president in the history of this country. I think, because he's going to fail at everything he does.
Well, it's happening so far.
It's happening so far. This week, a who's who of leading brands are all publicly committed to staying the course on fighting climate change. Mars, Anheuser-Busch, Nestle, General Mills, Apple, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, General Electric, The Gap, Walmart have all weighed in following the announcement of Trump's executive order to roll back the Clean Power Plan. I am writing an article for Green Energy Times. It's going to go in the next issue, which is going to be on the 15th of April, called "It's Not a Tragedy, It's the First Act of a Comedy." Yeah, Donald Trump and Scott Pruitt are acting as though they don't realize that just a few days more than 10 years ago, the Supreme Court ruled that carbon dioxide emissions are pollution and they have to be regulated.
Amazing.
Well, they didn't rule that they had to be regulated. They told the lower court to do that.
Yeah.
So it went to a lower court.
We're going to talk about that again.
Yeah.
Yeah, later on.
Okay.
I'm just trying to
You got more to say about this thing?
I just wanted to say this, that my nephew works for Mars.
Oh, okay.
So I just sent him an email about congratulating him for doing that.
Yeah.
And he sent me back an answer that Mars does a lot of ecologically friendly stuff.
Yeah. And you know, one of the people who reads my blog and who writes me often is a union organizer for coal unions in New Mexico. And I'm going to develop this person's story because this is really interesting. The coal unions in New Mexico are in serious trouble, and the union members don't want to abandon the coal union because they've got too much invested in it. So they don't want to get jobs in the wind, dealing with wind turbines, despite the high pay, So anyway, the coal union members probably got higher pay in the mines, but
Well, that's surface mines down there, isn't it?
I don't know what kind of
The
mines it is.
underground miners make a lot of money, but I wouldn't imagine the surface miners.
Maybe
First
they
of all, there
don't.
isn't very many of them.
Yeah.
You got a guy to run that
Well,
big shovel. He
they've
gets good
got
money.
800 jobs that they're going to lose between the power plant, and most of them are in the power plant and the mines. Because there's one mine that all it does is deliver coal to that power plant.
Yep.
They're
tied together.
They're tied together. There's a railroad running between them, but it doesn't connect with the rest of the world. So they
we
can't.
talked about that one, I think.
We have. Okay, should we go on?
I think we shall.
Okay, that one was in Forbes. I think I mentioned that. Our next one is in the Santa Fe New Mexican.
New EPA documents reveal. The
The EPA.
deeper cut.
The EPA has issued more details of a plan for laying off 25% of its employees. Do you think this is going to get through Congress? As antagonistic as Congress is to the EPA and clean energy and so forth, I think this this issue in the budget is going to be changed.
I think you're right. The employees vote for one thing.
Yeah. The EPA has issued more details of a plan for laying off 25% of its employees and scrapping more than 50 programs. The lost programs include pesticide safety. Well, the agricultural workers won't like that one. Water runoff control. People who drink water might like that one. Might not like that one. And environmental cooperation with Mexico and Canada under NAFTA. Well, maybe they want to build a wall between Canada and the United States. The agency is considering a rollback in fuel efficiency standards. This is in the Santa Fe New Mexican. And by the way, when I said maybe they want to build a wall between Canada and the United States, I was suggesting maybe the Canadians will want to do that.
I was thinking that same thing.
I don't know what's going to happen with this. I mean, it is tragic, what they're doing to people. But I'm not sure that
Well, a lot of these things are a result of off-the-cuff remarks he made when he was running.
Yeah.
And they were promises, and now he's trying to fulfill the promises, and they're not making sense.
No, he's got these programs. He's trying to show the American people how easy it is to be president of the United States. You just do whatever you want to do with the stroke of a pen.
Yeah,
And what he's showing is that if you just stroke your pen, you're going to wind up doing stupid things.
Yeah.
Which is why presidents in the past didn't do them. Okay, we're up to Sunday, April
Yeah, we got a
2nd.
nice picture
Oh, we do
coming
have a
up here.
nice picture with this one.
It's a
pretty
It is
picture.
a pretty picture.
This is from The Guardian.
Labour Party, that's in Australia. The
Yep.
Labour Party to drop renewable energy target in favor of an emissions scheme.
All right, now, we got to be clear about what labor is in Australia, because in the rest of the world, when you're talking about the parties, they're kind of the reverse of what you would expect. Liberal is conservative, and conservative is liberal, and they just don't make sense. But so don't get too wound up on the fact that this is the Labour Party. In Australia, Labour will abandon a renewable energy target after 2020 because an emissions intensity scheme will be sufficient to reach the goal of 50% renewable energy by 2030. The shadow assistant treasurer confirmed the opposition's plan to reach the goal, possibly ruling out extending existing renewable energy targets.
That's another one I can't figure out. The shadow assistant.
Well, this is an interesting way of doing things, and there's no law that says we couldn't do it in the United States, but when you have one party in control,
Yeah.
and you have an opposition party.
Yeah.
Now, the party that's in control in Australia is not really a party, it's really a coalition of two parties. And then you have the opposition, which consists of...
Which is the Labour Party.
Yeah, and there's other parties that kind of bounce around there that are not aligned. But the opposition organizes a prime minister and cabinet that are...
Which they call the shadow.
They call the shadow. So that if the government falls, because they don't have a new election every 4 years, and by golly, everything's going to happen as it is, well, every 2 years in the case of Congress, in the United States, their political system could just fall. at any time.
Or someone could call for a vote of no confidence.
Exactly. And in fact, that's what happened to Tony Abbott. His own party called for a vote of no confidence. Okay. They kicked him out. But because it's a coalition, the other party in the coalition could just say, I'm not working with you guys anymore, which means that the main party has got to find another coalition partner or have an election. So that by having a shadow government, they have a government that's all set up and ready to go on a moment's notice.
That's it.
You see?
It's an interesting concept.
Yeah. This is from The Guardian. Did I read this? I guess I didn't. Should I read it? Yes, I should.
Yeah.
In Australia, Labor will abandon the renewable energy target after 2020 because of an emissions intensity scheme. I read this. Okay. So yes. Are we done?
You did read it.
Okay. Sufficiently embarrassed. We will move on. Our next item is from Engadget.
Okay. I don't have a picture for this one.
No, there's no picture.
Coal's sharp decline leads to a drop in U.S. energy production.
Wow. The U.S. Energy Information Administration, which, by the way, you should never trust in terms of its forward projections or in terms of anything that it says about solar.
Their numbers are always bogus, aren't they?
Their numbers are always not just bogus, they're so far off the mark, it looks like they've been smoking something funny. The U.S. Energy Information Administration has published data revealing that the country's 2016 energy production dropped over the previous year. This was the first such drop since 2009, which happened because there was a recession going on. Most of the decline was in coal, whose output fell 18% compared to 2015. Output from other energy sources also dipped, but solar and wind power grew.
Well, the takeaway here is whether you like it or not, coal power is on a decline.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's having a marked impact on American energy output.
Yeah, the utilities are not building new coal-burning plants, but they're closing down the old ones. What does that tell you? We're not increasing our exports because China is no longer taking them, and India is no longer taking them. Mm-hmm. And the Australians are looking around for a market and finding it hard to find. And so this is an industry that is going out of business for a reason.
Well, buggy whips went out of business too.
So did manual typewriters and slide rules.
What's a typewriter?
What's a typewriter? You can actually get them down at the what's that used store down on Flat Street, the one run by Hospice.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. I've seen them.
I can't think of what they call it. But
I can't think of it either offhand.
Goods.
Something like that, but it's. You can find them down there, and there are people who prefer them because they don't understand computers. But computers make such a big difference. I didn't really write until I got a computer. Okay, we're up to Monday, April 3rd. Now I write so much that it seems like that's all I do.
We have an image coming up here.
We have an image. There's the image.
This is a good article. It's long, it's in depth, very interesting article.
This is from the Environmental Defense Fund, by the way.
The 10th anniversary of Massachusetts versus EPA.
On April 2nd, 2007, the Supreme Court forcefully rejected the Bush EPA's laundry list of reasons not to address climate pollution. The High Court held that protection of human health and the environment from air pollution must be rooted in science, not expediency or politics. So everything Donald Trump has said has already been banned by the Supreme Court, and the EPA has been told to deal with it by the Supreme Court, despite Scott Pruitt saying he doesn't believe in climate change.
Yeah.
The Supreme Court officially believes in climate change. So getting through what Donald Trump and Scott Pruitt want to do means that they're going to have to reverse the Supreme Court's ruling. On what grounds they could do that, I don't know. One of the conservatives on the court actually voted in favor of this thing, which means I don't think they're, and not only that, but these guys are conservatives who remember when Richard Nixon was alive. You remember Richard Nixon?
Yeah.
He was the guy who introduced the EPA, conservative Republican. This is a hopeless job for Scott Pruitt. The whole reason why they sued over the EPA was to slow things down for the purpose of propping up the bottom line of fossil fuel companies, as far as I can
Basically,
see.
yes, yeah.
And you know, here Scott Pruitt is going to have to come up, in order to abandon the Clean Power Plan, what has he got to do? He's got to come up with a replacement for it. And the replacement is going to have to satisfy the courts.
Duh. This is one of the most important environmental cases in U.S. history.
Oh, I think it is. But this is the reason why I'm writing that article called "It's Not a Tragedy, It's the First Act of a Comedy." Okay.
So if you're real interested in this, I'd advise you to look this article
This is
up. It'll take you about a week to read it.
Poor Tom has to spend all day on Wednesday every week doing nothing but reading this blog. Yeah, it's a long article. It says a lot. It's from the Environmental Defense Fund. These people know what they're talking about. You know, their lawyers are deeply involved in the environment. This is good stuff.
Well, the next one's a little bit of an enigma here.
This one is so strange.
Nick fires global warming shot. Now we're about to find out what Nick is.
Yeah, this is from the Scottish Sun. It could have been from the San Francisco Bee or something like that. You know, Scottish First Minister Nicola Sturgeon, that's Nick, will deliver a snub to Donald Trump. Well, I don't think Scottish people like Donald Trump very much, despite the fact that his mother came from Scotland, over his stance on the environment today, signing a climate change pact with one of the U.S. president's bitter rivals. She will pose with California Governor Jerry Brown in a show of unity against the ditching of Obama-era policies tackling global warming. And by the way, you know that Donald Trump sued in Scotland to prevent a small offshore wind farm from going up because it was within sight of his golf course.
Yeah.
He also sued he was sued in Ireland.
Yeah.
Because he was putting up
A fence.
a barrier against rising seas for a golf club there. And in court, his attorneys said they needed this because the seas were rising due to climate change.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I don't think Donald Trump knows what he's doing. I really don't think he knows what he's doing.
It's interesting that Irish golf course is in Kilkee, Ireland.
Okay.
Which is where my grandmother came from.
Oh, good for your grandmother. We are up to Tuesday, April 4th.
Okay.
Oh, we have a picture here too, don't we?
We've got a nice picture coming.
Yeah,
up
this
here.
is from the BBC.
Let's get this guy up here.
And that picture I think is in, I don't know where it is. It's someplace out west.
Yeah, it's a Tesla dealer.
It's someplace with
And
funny
these
trees.
people are lining up to put money down on a Tesla.
This is in the BBC, yes. Got a title?
Tesla's market value overtakes Ford.
What?
The market value of the company.
Yeah, Tesla's market value has overtaken that of Ford after shares in the electric car maker added more than 7%. At the close of trading, Tesla had a market value of $49 billion, which, by the way, because this is BBC, is translated into 38 billion pounds, compared with Ford's value of $46 billion, so it's 49 versus 46. Tesla's shares rose after the company announced a record vehicle deliveries in the first 3 months of the year. Now, this is what's called the market capitalization, which if you take all the stock...
How much the stock is worth.
Yeah, take all of the stock, number of shares, multiply it by the sale cost. This is somewhat simplistic because you're going to have different kinds of stock. But you multiply those out and you get the market value, so that if the company were sold at its current value, that's what you'd get. Now, you know, in the old days, you had 3 auto companies in the United States that were the big 3. Mm-hmm. They were GM, Ford, and Chrysler. Mm-hmm. Now the big 3 is GM, Tesla, and Ford.
Yeah, Chrysler's kind of...
Well, I don't know that Chrysler...
They're still there.
They're still there, but, you know, they're about where Studebaker was in the old days.
Probably something like that.
Yeah.
or what is it, Nash?
I think Nash,
Became American Motors, didn't it?
Studebaker and Nash both went into American Motors, I think.
There's a quick takeaway here.
Yeah.
5 years ago, no one knew what a Tesla was. Now people want a Tesla.
That's right.
A good point.
Yeah.
It makes a good car.
Yep. We should move on, and our next item is from Mashable.
EPA head Scott Pruitt. We just talked about him.
Didn't we? Yeah, I think this is.
They have broken integrity rules by denying global warming. Ta-da!
At the urging of the Sierra Club, the EPA's scientific integrity official is reviewing Trump appointee EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt's comments to see if they violate the agency's scientific integrity policy. The policy requires that all agency employees, including Pruitt, quote, communicate with honesty, integrity, and transparency, end quote. And in my opinion, Pruitt doesn't do any of the above. But
I think I don't think he was thinking what he was talking about.
Well, he said something in the last day or two in which he admitted that climate change was happening as a result of carbon pollution. But he
basically, yeah.
He kind
of
said.
No, I would not agree that it's a primary contributor to the global warming that we see.
Yeah, well.
That's what he said.
Yes. Okay, we're up to
let's move into
CNBC, and we're back to Scotland. And we have a lovely picture here of another image of a wind
These are
farm.
in Scotland.
They are in Scotland.
Got also a pretty picture.
Yes, indeed. Okay.
Wind power records set in Scotland and in India.
Scottish wind turbines sent more than 1.2 million megawatt hours of electricity to the national grid in March, according to new analysis of data. In a news release, WWF Scotland said that turbines produce enough electricity to meet the electrical needs of 136% of Scottish households, an increase of 80% over March 2016. Now, of course, 136% of Scottish households, I'm just going to guess, is probably about 50% of their total electricity demand. Because
we're not talking about industry here.
We're not talking about industry, we're not talking about commerce.
Yep.
Okay, despite that picture, should we move on?
I think we can, because we've got another picture coming up.
We have another picture coming up. Did
no,
you
we
have...
don't. Sorry, I got the same picture.
Same picture? Okay. Did you want to say more about that?
Well, the article talks about the jobs that wind power is supplying in Scotland.
Yeah.
Which, as we've talked about,
unbelievable. That
a lot of jobs, and they're good paying jobs.
There are a lot of. I was amazed when I discovered that there are entry-level positions in the 30% of the 36%, I think, of the positions in the wind industry in Massachusetts last year were entry level. The median pay for wind positions in Massachusetts was $51,600. Now, in order for that to happen, some of those entry-level jobs had to be $50,000 jobs.
Oh, certainly, yeah.
What is this? And you know that I keep wanting to bring in that video of that young woman dangling from a rope at a wind turbine with a grinder, grinding on the tip of a blade.
That's
350 feet.
Bucks.
That's why they make the big bucks. Okay, so we are up to April 5th, which is Wednesday, yesterday. Thomas Reuters Foundation sent us this news item.
Trump declares an end to the war on coal. But utilities aren't listening.
Mr. Ineffectual. Do you play bridge, Tom?
I do not play bridge.
Okay. For anybody who doesn't play bridge.
If I was playing bridge in college, I'd have flunked out.
I played a lot of bridge in college. The more I played bridge, the more I lost. And the more I lost, the better my grades were. It didn't make any sense at all. But nevertheless, when you're playing bridge, you bid for what is going to be trump. And a trump card, when people play a card, everybody else has to play the same suit. But if they don't have the same suit, they've got two choices. They can either trump it, which means that they're going to beat anything of that suit. person could put down the ace of hearts, but if spades are trump and you put down the two of spades, you win.
You've trumped them.
You've trumped them, unless somebody puts down a higher trump. If you don't put down trump, you're going to have to discard, which means that you put down a card of another suit, and your card has no value. Sometimes at the end of a hand, you're sitting there with two trump cards, but they're both low, and somebody plays a card, and you have to play one of them on it, but somebody else has already played a higher trump card, which means you're discarding a trump.
Yeah.
And the point I'm making is sometimes a trump has to be discarded.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I'm just saying, sometimes you have to get rid of a trump and get nothing for it. Reuters surveyed 32 utilities with operations in the 26 states that sued former President Barack Obama's administration to block its Clean Power Plan, which is going to be updated, of course, by the Scott Pruitt Donald Trump Clean Power Plan, because they're going to have to do that. Most of them have no plans to alter their multi-billion-dollar years-long shift away from coal, suggesting demand that the fuel will keep falling despite all of Donald Trump's efforts.
So we've talked about this. These states are suing, but meanwhile they're going along with the opposite of their lawsuits.
Well, they did sue. I think the lawsuit is going to become moot, but no, they might actually pursue it, just for purely political reasons, saying, well, the Clean Power Plan hasn't actually been withdrawn. It's just the president says it should be. This is going to be a political football because other people are now suing the Trump administration because it's dropping protections for people that are guaranteed.
Yeah.
And so what are we going to do with this? Well, this is something that's going to be decided in the courts.
I think they just did something yesterday that affects people's pensions.
And if these
The
things,
pension guys no longer, if this goes through, no longer have to be responsible for protecting their clients.
this is a mess.
Yeah.
And Donald Trump's presidency, his loss over the medical insurance thing,
That hurt him bad.
it hurt him bad. It's going to be brought up again. But
what's that guy the Irish guy there? That's the bigot.
Ryan?
No, he appointed this guy to the National Security.
Flynn.
Huh?
Flynn?
Did wrong guy.
Okay. He appointed a lot of people, and there are a lot of people.
This guy's a noteworthy bigot. I mean, he's
You're talking about Steve Bannon?
Bannon, yeah.
Steve Bannon has been demoted.
That's what I'm talking about. Yep.
Well,
Exactly.
why do you suppose Steve Bannon was demoted? Because he shouldn't have been on the security panel anyway.
In the first place.
He should never have been allowed in there. I mean, that was unprecedented. You take not only a news reporter, but a bigoted news reporter. That's my opinion of Bannon. And
he took the military off the National Security Agency.
what is he thinking?
Really?
I think he would have put Vladimir Putin in there.
He was just trying to help his Goombas.
He was, this is all about, this is a government that is not about the people of the United States, the security of the United States, or even the economy of the United States. It's about Donald Trump and his buddies. Or at least that's the way it looks to me.
It certainly looks that way.
Okay.
It's interesting.
So we have...
another nice picture coming up.
We
here.
do indeed. And I haven't read this, I don't think. Reuters...
You gotta get the picture up.
No, this is the one that we were just talking about. I don't think I read that.
Oh, you haven't read that one?
Reuters surveyed 32 utilities with operations in 26 states that sued former President Barack Obama's administration. Again, I did it. I've forgotten. To block the Clean Power Plan. Most of them have no plans to alter their billion-dollar years-long shift. Okay, sorry about that. Second time I've done it. When I was 13 years old, this is not a senior moment. When I was 13 years old, I actually spent half an hour looking for a pencil I was holding in my left hand. This is true. Okay, our next item is from the Washington Post, and yes, we have a very confusing picture. This is a picture.
Yeah, it is. I saw that, and I was confused.
This looks like 3 hurricanes hitting. No, it's just one hurricane.
Same hurricane.
And it's been tracked as it goes across, and they've got a triple exposure here.
Which hurricane is that?
This is Hurricane Andrew, 1992.
Andrew, that's the one that hit New Orleans.
Katrina hit New Orleans.
Yeah,
Did Andrew hit New Orleans too? It might have.
Well, it was.
I think
Andrew
hit
Florida too.
It hit Florida, and it was tough on Florida. Okay.
This is also a very interesting and informative article.
Yeah. What do you got for a title for it?
Congress passes comprehensive weather forecasting and research bill.
Now, this is one of the most fascinating articles of the week.
Yeah, it is.
And this is from the 5th of April, and it's from the Washington Post. A sweeping piece of legislation that aims to improve forecasts for everything from Category 5 hurricanes to El Nino has passed both houses of Congress. The Weather Research and Forecasting Innovation Act of 2017, H.R. 353, will become the first major weather legislation enacted since the early 1990s, if signed by the president.
Signs it, yep.
Now, I don't know what kind of support this has got, because I think this was passed on a House voice vote.
Well, both houses passed it.
Both houses passed it, and this is something I find fascinating because it comments on what's going on in American politics. We have been seeing Trump talking about disabling not only the EPA, but the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration.
Yeah.
And what he's been trying to do is to get that reduced, to get weather operations from NASA reduced in favor of trying to send somebody to Mars. I would suggest a volunteer from the Donald Trump administration. Maybe they could send the entire cabinet to Mars along with the vice president and the president.
That'd be fun.
It would be fun. It's fun to see them telling us about how things are going in space. But this particular thing, which would be a really interesting kind of place to put research that is now being taken away from NASA and NOAA and get funded. I mean,
what this bill is all about is how to improve forecasts
yes.
for extreme weather events.
Yes.
If you know a hurricane's coming, you're a little bit better off and you can prepare for it.
Yes.
And that's what they're trying to do.
But in order to do that, you have to pay attention to climate change.
There is no such thing. It's a hoax.
Right. Could I tell you about what I found about flood insurance? And
Sure.
and this thing is part of it. In 1978, the payouts for flood insurance claims in the United States came to $82 million. This is a federal government datum that is available on the internet. Now,
Say that one again.
it's a federal government
No,
datum.
1978, how much?
$82 million.
That's not a lot.
Not a lot. The average amount paid out just went up and up and up after 1978.
Yeah.
So by 2004, it had reached $480 million. All
Now we're starting to talk about some serious money.
right. We're also talking about a time when the government of the United States suddenly came to realize that 1% of the properties that were covered, this, by the way, is not a taxpayer gift. This is
No, you're going to buy it.
The federal government is guaranteeing insurance for insurance policies, because if they don't, they know that two
People will
bad
get it.
hurricanes could wipe out the industry and leave people with their claims unpaid.
Yep.
So if the federal government puts out money, the industry has to repay it, but it doesn't. This is just a guarantee. All right. By 2004, it had gone to $480 million, but they realized that 1% of the property were responsible for 30% of the claims, and that was because a lot of properties are in flood zones.
Yeah.
All right. Multiple payouts to the same property can result in it's not being guaranteed anymore. So you would expect that $480 million average would go down because they have to mediate or they have to
you
get
for this already, and you
exactly.
didn't move the house. It's your
All right.
problem.
That's right. In that time, the greatest, the record payout under that program, under flood insurance, was $1.3 billion in 1 year.
Wow.
Okay. Since that time,
Yeah.
the average payout has been $3.3 billion, and the record has gone to $17 billion.
This is the payout per incident?
This is the
Well,
payout.
we're not
This is the
talking
payout
about
per
ordinary
year.
people
Per
here.
year. Per year.
Oh, well, still.
For the now, only about 10% of the properties are insured, the ones that get hurt.
Yeah.
So our flood losses are probably averaging about $35 billion a year. And why are they so high compared to what they were in 1978?
Well, for one thing, I think the oceans are getting a little bit deeper.
The oceans are getting deeper, and climate change is happening, which makes bigger storms, and this is hitting our economy hard. This is just flood insurance. It doesn't say anything about farm insurance for
Right,
droughts.
right.
You know, I mean, and you can just go down a long list. You know, what happens when a hurricane hits? What's that place called? Lagomar?
Yeah.
You think Donald Trump's going to collect? I think so. I bet he pays flood insurance on that place.
I wouldn't bet against it, that's for sure.
But you know,
Well, Florida's going to get hit hard because what is the highest peak in the state? It's like 36 feet above sea level.
I think it's actually higher than that. But
A couple of hundred feet, I think.
sunny day flooding
Yeah.
is hitting cities down there and other places on the
we
coast
talked about that last week.
every other week.
Yeah.
Every other week, when the sun and the moon line up with the earth in new moon or full moon, the biggest tides, they're called spring tides, hit. And the people who write news reports about this don't understand that they're not seasonal tides. But nevertheless, you know, this is what happens. We have one more piece, and we really should get to it.
Pacific Corp proposes big new wind power investment.
This
This is an interesting
It's an
story.
interesting article, and this is from the Portland Business Journal. Pacific Corp now generates 60% of its electricity from coal and is planning to make a big commitment to wind power. The 6-state utility released a long-term power plan that foresees building a 1,100 megawatt of new wind power capacity, while also retrofitting an additional 900 megawatts, all by the end of 2020, and they are shutting down a coal-burning plant that is approximately the same size as what they're adding.
So they're getting rid of coal.
They're getting rid of coal. And that company, by the way, is owned by Warren Buffett.
Uh-huh.
Indirectly, but it's...
Yeah. I think
So-
he knows what's going on.
I kind of suspect that he does, but I think he'll invest wherever he thinks that it's wise to invest.
Well, yeah.
And that includes natural gas. He's kind
Yeah.
of...
But I don't think he's invested much in coal.
He's not as far as I can tell, there are only 3 coal projects under construction in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And those 3 projects are all very small. I'm not sure, maybe they are extensions of existing plants. But I don't, that's not, I mean, we're shutting down 3 projects every week in coal. And so there's no future there. And even if Donald Trump could convince the utilities to build new coal generating plants or keep open plants that could turn a profit, they're going to close coal burning plants faster than they build them because they're too expensive. The electricity is too expensive. It's more expensive than nuclear. And
So it's the market.
nuclear is more expensive than natural gas. And combined cycle natural gas is more expensive than wind or solar. And now, wind, solar, and natural gas, wind, solar, and batteries are starting to compete very successfully with combined cycle natural gas.
And as we spoke about last week, battery prices are going way down.
That is true. So we should get to the point of saying goodbye. Goodbye.
I hate to go.
You can all come back next week if you like. we'll try to be here.
And makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay.